Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Today we focus on two distressing developments in the Imphal Valley of Manipur. Has the Arambai Tenggol become a law unto itself, defying the police and increasingly defying the state? And secondly, has the United National Liberation Front, a former Meitei extremist underground faction, breached its peace terms with the government? In both instances, the government, both at the center and the state, are silent, suggesting they've turned a deliberate blind eye. Joining me for today's discussion is the well-known senior journalist, columnist, and author, Pradip Phanjoubam. Pradip Phanjoubam, last week the Manipur police issued a statement accusing Arambai Tenggol of many antisocial activities, such as assaulting civilians and snatching vehicles from the public and government officials. The statement also said they were involved in extortion, both from the public and traders. So let me start by asking, has the Arambai Tenggol become a law unto itself, doing exactly what it wants and defying the police?
I think this is what happens when a conflict is prolonged, a deadly conflict is prolonged, that the law recedes, and it shouldn't have receded at all, but that happened. And when that law recedes, the saying that nature abhors a vacuum, and that vacuum is being filled by other forms of law and mutant versions of law. And this is exactly what is happening. And I would blame the situation as such that and not just on any particular organization. If they were not there, somebody else would have done that, because the law had receded and the vacuum was created, and that this vacuum had to be filled, especially in a conflict situation where the public are in uncertainty as well as very, very insecure. So they look to people who they feel can actually be defending them. And this is what is happening here in the valley, but I'm sure it is also the case in the hills as well.
So what you're saying is that the law has receded, a vacuum has been created, and the Arambai Tenggol have stepped in to fill that vacuum. But it follows from what you're saying that as a result of filling a vacuum, the Arambai Tenggol has become a law unto itself. They're doing precisely what they want, and they're defying the police.
Again, this is not new in a conflict situation, and especially in a prolonged kind of conflict situation. And in fact, I get a sense of deja vu of the 1990s when the Nagas and Kukis are fighting. And in the initial stages, Nagas are actually overpowered. I mean, they were the much more organized group. So the Kukis suffered. And when the Kukis started arming themselves, and I'm told also being armed, similar kind of situation was happening. The suspension of operation came about initially as an informal kind of agreement in the Mori area. Yeah, and then later on,
last week, when the chief of the Arambai Tenggol's SECMA unit, a gentleman called Robin M., was arrested for allegedly snatching a vehicle from a petrol pump, the Arambai Tenggol stormed the residence of the additional superintendent of police and abducted him, although, like the Arambai Tenggol, the ASP is a fellow Meitei. Meanwhile, the ASP was, of course, released, but he needed medical treatment. Isn't this a clear sign that the Arambai Tenggol is not just defying the police, it's also going one critical step further and challenging the state? When you abduct an ASP, you are
But
clearly challenging the very administration and the state itself.
I think so. The only thing is that that's a mistake they made. In a sense, if I were to refer back to that same deja vu, and that same thing happened. That once upon a time this was happening. The one group was being armed, or a blind eye turned to them as they were arming themselves and things like that. That kind of situation was there, and I'm even thinking that this will lead to another kind of suspension of operation agreement. If you look back, and I'm trying to compare.
But let me interrupt. We don't know what it will lead to because that is speculation about the future. What we do know is that they have successfully defied the police. You use the euphemism, they've stepped into a vacuum where the police have receded, but in the process, they've defied the police. Now, when they abducted an ASP, they've defied the very authority of the state. And in both instances, they've got away with it.
Yeah, I don't know if they really got away with it, because I think, although I was out of station when this thing happened, they have been put in place, and then I think it's been back in order in the sense that semblance of order that was there before. And the blind eye, of course, is there. As I was saying, that maybe there's a bigger plan to have to build up another force which will counter something else, which happened in the 1990s, and that kind of thing. Maybe what is in play, because I can't understand why this has been going on for a long time. The state should be in total command of the law and order.
Let me answer that.
Yeah.
One reason why they, i.e. the Arambai Tenggol, are getting away with it, and because the state is not in total command, is an explanation given by a police officer to the Hindu. He has said, the force's morale is down. He says, and I'm quoting him, our hands are tied. We are stopped from taking action against the miscreants. Are Biren Singh and his government stopping the Manipur police from acting against the Arambai Tenggol because of the fact that Biren Singh has very close links with the Tenggol? Many people believe Biren Singh is their patron. Is that one reason why the Manipur police have had their hands tied and why their morale is down?
Well, that again is a speculation. Of course, he would be close in a sense that before this trouble broke out, this organization was just a cultural revivalist group, like many others, and they would have stayed like that if not for this trouble. So it's a response to an abnormal situation. It's a response to an extraordinary situation, and an extraordinary phenomenon has happened. And this is what we are witnessing. And this is not entirely new to a place exposed to conflict for a long time. And people try to adjust to that new normal, because that's the only way they can get along. And I think that's what's happening at the moment. And of course, the kidnapping of the police officer and also manhandling him, those kind of things happen, and the repercussion has come about. I think for a while they were going to disband. And in fact, this disbanding thing had happened before as well. On the May 3rd.
Let me quote to you the somewhat desperate plea issued a few days ago by the Manipur police. They now feel so unable to act that they've actually issued a general appeal to the public. This is what it says. It is our appeal to the public to give maximum cooperation to the police. If the civil police are not able to perform their duties due to lack of cooperation from the public or obstruction by civil society organizations, the CRPF, the BSF, the Assam Rifles, and the army will all have to come in to assist. As I said, this is a desperate police plea, a desperate plea for help from the Manipur police. Will they get the help they're asking?
No, I think the police had always these options of having the army and the Assam Rifles and the BSF. They were always there. But I think they are also suffering from that same paralysis, in a sense that what were they doing all this while? Why hasn't the law and order come back in the hands of the law? where it should be. That has not happened. So
But isn't that entirely because the Biren Singh government is not giving the Manipur police a free hand? And many people suspect it's because Biren Singh is the patron of the Arambai Tenggol. Otherwise, if the government were to order the police to act and to act tough and effectively against the Tenggol, they would.
Yeah, that would be there. But then Biren Singh is also under the Home Ministry. I mean, he's patronized by the Home Ministry. He can't do anything. For a while, we thought that the Article 355 was around. And even when they clarified the Article 55 was not promulgated, still we felt that the control of the law and order handles were with the Home Ministry, not with the state government, because the state government we thought was quite powerless. And maybe, he's giving the direction, but he would be giving it as a proxy of the center. I don't think he can.
Are you suggesting, because this is very interesting, that maybe one reason why Biren Singh is not giving orders to the Manipur police to take tough action against the Tenggol is because his own hand is being restrained by the Home Ministry in Delhi? In other words, the Home Ministry in Delhi seems to be happy to let Arambai Tenggol have a free hand.
That also seems to be, again, although it's a speculation, that, when the Home Ministry is present so strongly here in the state, why isn't there anything done? And also, Amit Shah himself had come here, the Home Minister himself had come here. And when that was happening, these things the violence was still ongoing. He would have seen it firsthand. And yet there are no actions taken. So I think there's a link between the state and the center.
Can I this is a particularly serious thing you're saying, that you believe it's quite likely that the Home Ministry in Delhi is restraining Biren Singh from acting against the Tenggol because the Home Ministry would like the Tenggol to have a relatively free hand. That is a very serious thing you're saying. Are you reasonably certain and sure of it?
No, I'm not saying I'm sure, but then as I said in the beginning, I had a sense of deja vu of the 1990s when the Sioux militants were coming up, Sioux Kuki militants were coming up. Similar kind of thing happened. That in the Mori area, they were there openly. And then the ceasefire agreement. I mean, you're having a ceasefire agreement with somebody who has not fired a shot at you, and that kind of thing happened. So I'm thinking that maybe another plan like that is in the making.
Okay.
That another Sioux kind of agreement is on the table.
Now, Pradip Phanjoubam, as you know, this is not the first time that Arambai Tenggol has attracted adverse attention. In January, and I interviewed you at the time, they made 37 MLAs and 2 MPs take an oath in Kangla Fort, and separately to sign a document committing themselves to pursuing Arambai Tenggol's objectives, and Chief Minister Biren Singh was one of the signatories of that document. At the time, the Arambai Tenggol chief Karun Gangba Human told PTI, "We wanted to show today that ministers and MLAs are under the public." At the time, this seemed to many people like the ascendance of Arambai Tenggol and the deliberate subordination of the state government. Now today, after the police themselves are helpless in restraining the Tenggol, does it not seem as if the Arambai Tenggol is more important than the state government?
I wouldn't go to that extent, but then it does seem that there's some bit of the permissiveness on the part of not just the state, but also the Home Ministry, because when that meeting happened, the Home Ministry officials, high officials were here, and they had discussions with the Arambai Tenggol as well. So this is why I'm suggesting that there could be a bigger plan, which is why these things are being allowed, that the law and order has still not been brought back into the hands of the law.
I hear what you're saying, that there could be a bigger plan. You suspected that maybe there is some sort of Sioux-type agreement with the Arambai Tenggol that is in the making. I should explain to the audience that that is the nature of the agreement that the Home Ministry signed with the Kuki militants in 2008. You're saying a similar sort of agreement could be signed by Tenggol, which is why the Tenggol are being given this free hand and appear to be running amok. But let me put, in a sense, the opposite to you. Isn't this undermining Biren Singh's chief ministership? He is supposed to be the ultimate authority in the state. Law and order are supposed to come under him because Article 355 has not been imposed. And yet, the Arambai Tenggol is running amok. The police are helpless. They're appealing to the public for help. The Arambai Tenggol chief is busy telling PTI, we want to bring ministers under the public. Isn't this undermining Biren Singh personally?
Yeah, it is. And also, let me just remind you that it's not just the Arambai Tenggol which is on the offensive, or say the people who are in the forefront. But the thing is, they are the ones getting the most publicity. Everybody thinks that any violence happens is Arambai Tenggol, which is not the case. There are so many other village volunteers also doing it, defending their villages and fighting with this battle. So, but the general impression is that anything that happens here is Arambai Tenggol, which is not the case. They are of course now the biggest force, no doubt, but they are not the only ones. That has to be.
I take your point that there are village defense people on both sides who are free and operating, but, and this is why I'm highlighting the Arambai Tenggol, the Manipur police have actually issued a specific appeal to the public for help with regard to the Arambai Tenggol. It's the Arambai Tenggol who abducted an additional superintendent of police who's a fellow Maite like them. It's the Arambai Tenggol about whom the Manipur police have publicly said that they are guilty of many antisocial activities such as assaulting civilians and snatching vehicles. They are also, the police says, guilty of extortion. So the police is not focusing on all the other small little entities that seem to have a free hand. The police is focused primarily on Arambai Tenggol.
Yeah, that's true. But then I think what the police was appealing is not really a matter of throwing up your hands and saying that we are powerless, we've been overpowered. They are basically appealing to the people because they know, for some, in a conflict situation again, these kind of groups will have huge public support. And I think the police was actually appealing to them so that they don't come against that public if they have to take action against the Arambai Tenggol. It's not really saying that, please help us. It's saying that, please, we're doing something that we have to do, that kind of appeal.
And in other words, the police are asking for understanding.
And you will also remember that the Arambai Tenggol had also come out saying that we should not do. They came out with their own statement showing regret of what happened. So I think it's just a question of the police saying that, please understand, if we have to do it, we will do it. We have the power. But it's not saying that we are throwing our hands up, please help us, we are in distress. It's not that kind of an appeal.
Okay. Let's come to the second part of this interview. The second part is to do with the United National Liberation Front, a faction of which signed a peace agreement with the government, this time the central government, in November. It was intended that they would be kept in camps and that they would be monitored by central agencies. That is not what the Hindu says has happened. The Hindu says they are roaming around in vehicles, brandishing weapons, and indulging in violence against security forces. They've also been involved in looting police armories. Is this another deliberate failure by the Biren Singh government? Not only is the Biren Singh government unable or unwilling or not being permitted by Delhi to effectively handle the Arambai Tenggol, now they are unable or unwilling, or perhaps they're not being permitted by Delhi to effectively handle the United National Liberation Front.
I think, initially that these kind of things were happening. And also this accord which was signed, or whatever was signed, it was done at the wrong time when there was so much of uncertainty in the state. So that things were not put in place as it should be. And I think I would blame the conflict that's prolonged here, which for this uncertainty, because I do remember the chief minister coming out with a statement and appeal to that nobody should be coming out with weapons in the open, and on the vehicle, the sign of the UNLF and driving around, those kind of things should not be done. And I think it was.
But the truth is, Pradip Phanjoubam, everyone has seen multiple videos of UNLF commandos or troops or members, call them what you want, driving around in jeeps, in uniform, carrying weapons, disregarding the police, and behaving as if they themselves are the authorities that run the state. And they are a Maite extremist, formerly underground outfit that has now come on board and overground, but they are disobeying all the terms of the agreement they signed in November. That's precisely what the Hindu is pointing out. We've all seen videos of it, and the government is unable to do anything. Or maybe they don't want to do anything.
I've seen those videos as well, and I've seen the vehicles and the uniform before, but not so much now. Maybe they're still doing it, but then all those have been removed. And I think videos can actually past videos you can see it now also. So you are confused of the timeline. That kind of things keep happening, and I think now to some extent that order.
You're saying that these videos may be old. The Hindu article I'm quoting was from the 28th of February, precisely 6 days ago. Not only does that article say that the UNLF are roaming around in vehicles, brandishing weapons, indulging in violence against security forces, and looting police armories, but it also says that they are living in their homes or in other civilian areas. They have many weapons with them. They have not gone to any camp. They are not being monitored by any central or state security agency. In other words, they are free to do what they want.
Well, the Hindu seems to know a lot. I mean, I have not been investigating into these, but then I don't see as much as they are saying is happening. And I would take it with a pinch of salt. You know, that the kind of reportage, because I live in Imphal. I used to see these things that you are saying with them roaming around with weapons and all that, but now I don't see them anymore. And maybe it's happening and I don't see it because I can't be at every place.
Let me put it like this. On the 29th of November, when the UNLF signed the peace agreement, Home Minister Amit Shah said on X that they have agreed, and I'm quoting him, to renounce violence and join the mainstream. 3 months later, isn't it clear that he was completely wrong? If they agreed to any of that, they haven't lived up to the agreement. Clearly, the newspaper reports and the videos suggest that they're doing precisely what they want. They are not observing the terms of the peace agreement they reached.
Yeah, okay. The news reports are saying that, and although, as I said, I have not seen as much as being reported, but the authoritative sources from where to get information on this would be the security forces, the Assam Rifles, and the army. If they're saying the same thing, then maybe this is happening. I think, as I said, I would take it with a pinch of salt because I don't see as much as it is being reported.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and you've said it 3-4 times. You haven't seen as much as the Hindu is reporting. You believe that the videos which you've seen and which are circulating could be old. They may not be necessarily new, although the Hindu has gone public, and at no point has the state government or any army authority or state police authority denied and questioned the Hindu report. And it was a very big prominent report on the 28th of February. It hasn't been challenged by anyone, which is why, if it were wrong, I'm sure the state authorities would have questioned it at the least, if not challenged it outright. However, let me move one step further. The paradox is that last week the Manipur Assembly, without the participation of any of the 10 Kuki MLAs, passed a resolution calling on the central government to withdraw from the Sioux agreement with 24 Kuki militant groups. But they had nothing to say about the Arambai Tenggol. They had nothing to say about the UNLF. And as I've been saying to you, both of these seem to be running riot in the state. What do you make of that? They're terribly concerned about the Sioux agreement. The Manipur Assembly is passing what they claim to be unanimous resolutions, but they have nothing to say about Arambai Tenggol and UNLF at all.
There again, I don't want to go back to that thing, who triggered what and all that, but I think the whole idea of the insecurity here in the valley is basically after the Sioux agreement came about. Sioux agreement initially came about, as I said earlier, that here were a number of groups who have not fought the Indian Army or the police and yet entered into a peace agreement there. And that peace agreement was suspected to be for something else, that you have a counter force initially against the Nagas. And again, if you see the Sioux camps, it's not just in 1 or 2 camps only. It's just it forms a pearl necklace all around the valley. And so there's the apprehension that of being surrounded or being seized, that kind of a mentality here.
No,
So I think.
Pradeep, can I interrupt? The belief that the Kuki militants who surrendered under the Sioux agreements are breaching that agreement is a Meitei belief. I accept it. It's widespread amongst the Meitei. The Kuki deny it, and you know that as well. And the truth is, whatever reports we've had have suggested that the authorities believe that, in fact, the Kuki militants are observing the Sioux agreement, not breaching it. On the other hand, we have clear proof that the Arambai Tenggol is running riot. They're abducting ASPs of police. The police themselves are issuing public statements for public help. We know about the UNLF. Surely, it's incumbent on the Manipuri legislators, when they pass a resolution about the Sioux agreement, that they should be equally publicly expressing their concern about Arambai Tenggol and UNLF. But they're silent about the latter and fairly outspoken about Sioux. Isn't that a paradox? Isn't it contradictory?
In a way, yes, but then also you have to remember Sioux is already institutionalized. The other thing is a law and order problem, unfolding law and order problem, which is being tackled, or hopefully will be tackled. So far, not successfully, but can be tackled. But the other thing is an institutionalized thing. Probably that's why they wanted this thing abrogated, and also on the suspicion that this was meant to counter other groups. But as you said, the other thing, other issues should also have figured in the assembly. But the excuse is, or what I think is that the Sioux is something which is institutionalized, so you can change. But the other troubles that from the UNLF as well as Arambai Tenggol are things which has to be tackled by the law and order mechanism at the moment. But yeah,
we're coming to the end of this interview. Do these developments, I'm talking primarily about Arambai Tenggol and UNLF, do they suggest that these two groups, Arambai Tenggol and UNLF, their hold over the Meitei people is strengthening and deepening, and alongside the ability of the state government to stand up and respond is diminishing? Are both things happening simultaneously?
Well, let me put it this way: if this extraordinary situation was not there, this would not have been the case. That if the trouble here goes, then I don't think these issues will be relevant of one of the ascendancy of the Arambai Tenggol.
Is the hold of the Arambai Tenggol and UNLF over the Meitei people deepening and increasing?
It will, if the conflict continues, because they feel initially, I think it's true for everybody, that everybody was left to defend for themselves. And in such a case, people are actually hoping, people in the valley as well, were hoping that the insurgents would join, not just the UNLF, but all the others would join and be here to defend them. So if the conflict continues, these kind of things can happen. But if the conflict goes, I think the relevance will go
but
as
the
well.
The conflict isn't ending at the moment at all. Let me ask you the second half of that question. You agree that the hold of the Arambai Tenggol and the UNLF on the Meitei people is deepening and increasing. Simultaneously, is the capacity of the Biren Singh government to rein them in diminishing?
No, yeah, I think it's reciprocal in many ways. That if one side is taking over the law and order responsibility, the other side will diminish. That is quite evident. But the only thing is, no, I wouldn't say that the whole of these organizations on the Meitei mine is so much. As long as the conflict lasts, I think it's a conflict which is actually making it happen. But if the conflict goes, I think the relevance will also go. And also the other thing is that I see these as a symptom, not a disease. The disease is much deeper. That you treat this symptom, the disease is not going to go. If the disease goes, then symptoms will go.
Let me end by asking you a question about the conflict which is continuing. Manipur is no longer a front page story for the media in Delhi. Unfortunately, the media has now moved on to other things. But I get the feeling that in Manipur itself, far from the situation improving, it's steadily worsening. That the hold of extremists over the Meitei, and simultaneously, I'm sure the hold of extremists over the Kuki, in both instances, is deepening and increasing. The divide is getting wider and wider between them. In other words, far from improving, the situation in Manipur is slowly and steadily worsening although the eyes of the rest of the country have now been deflected?
I would totally agree with that. I think what has been happening, what has made the situation worse, is that the diagnosis is going wrong. We are only looking at the symptoms, not at the deeper causes of those symptoms. And you have a boil, you treat that boil. It's painful, so you have anti-inflammatory drugs and things that you control that thing. But if that boil is coming out because of the malfunction of your liver, then it's not going to make a difference because the boil is going to come out elsewhere. So we are talking about Arambai Tenggol. Supposing you subdued him, it's going to manifest in some other way if this trouble lasts. So I think the bigger disease is this trouble. And this
in other words, you are a pessimist today.
A pessimist in some ways, but optimist in the sense that I see there are hopes. There are people who still want peace. And if that peace comes about, all these things, all these symptoms will go away. I see them as only as symptoms of the larger problem. If the larger problem is stress, right now we are, even in this interview, we've been addressing only the symptoms, not the larger disease. If we
but we talked about the larger disease in interviews that we've been doing repeatedly and at great length from May onwards, which is why I'm not going back to the larger disease. It is now understood and covered very extensively by us. I'm focusing today on signs that are deeply distressing that have emerged in the last couple of weeks, which suggest that organizations like the Arambai Tenggol and the UNLF have got a free hand. The state, represented by Biren Singh and the police, have collapsed. And as a result, the situation in Manipur, although the eyes of the country are deflected and the papers no longer report it extensively, nonetheless, the situation in Manipur is deteriorating. That is what I wanted to focus on, because I think it's important that our countrymen should understand Manipur may not be in the news, but the situation
let me just
has not improved.
put one point here, that I think the hope is for the people here to realize that it is a common destiny, the geographical destiny. And I was recently reading this Eric Hobsbawm's book, the Fractured Times, where he was talking about the Jewish community in Europe, in Germany especially, who are passionate about the German identity. And he was actually saying that the identity is not so much biological, it's more historical, it's more destiny. And so I think if we realize that this conflict should actually show us that there is an integral geography, and trying to disturb that integral geography is going to cause conflict. And that if we address the problem that way, then all the symptoms will go away on their own. The trouble that the valley is facing, the hill is facing, all these will go, and then we can start our story in a new chapter.
Pradip Phanjoubam, let's hope we move very quickly to precisely what you're suggesting. Thank you very much for joining me and for answering my questions. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.